The search for the victims in the D.C. plane collision, that continues this morning. Right now in the Potomac River, you can see crews out on the water this morning. All of it comes as new details are emerging into what led to this disaster that killed 67 people. Investigators have now recovered all of the black boxes. That includes the one from the plane and the helicopter. It is critical. Gio Benitez in D.C. with the latest and what this means.
Salvage teams on the Potomac River will begin the painstaking process of pulling the American Airlines plane out of the water. Sources tell ABC News many of the victims' bodies are said to be trapped inside.
First and foremost, we need to make every effort and to make sure we're recovering every one of the people that perished in this accident.
Crews scanning the frigid river with sonar. 41 of the 67 bodies now recovered.
We have right now 2 distinct debris fields.
These images from a CCTV video obtained exclusively by CNN show one of the clearest views yet of that Black Hawk helicopter, there on the left moments before impact. Investigators recounting the final minutes before the American Airlines jet started its descent Wednesday night. At 8:43 p.m., the pilots told to land on a shorter runway. The Black Hawk helicopter now making its way up the Potomac River. At 8:45 p.m., air traffic control alerting the helicopter to that jet's approach. At 8:47 p.m., asking the Black Hawk pilots to confirm they see the jet.
At 25, get 0J in flight. At 25, pass one is 0J.
This club has an aircraft inside precision separation.
Seconds later, the collision.
32017.
On Friday, the NTSB said it found the black box from inside the Army helicopter. Early data shows the Black Hawk was flying above 300 feet when it should have been under 200. And we are learning more about the 67 people killed in that midair collision. The Army now identifying 2 of the 3 soldiers in that Black Hawk. 28-year-old Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara from Georgia, a 10-year veteran who served in Afghanistan, and 39-year-old Chief Warrant Officer and pilot Andrew Eves from Maryland. In the plane, biology professor Linsey Fields. She was heading to D.C. to advocate for science education. 33-year-old attorney Sarah Best. The day of her crash was her birthday. 11-year-old Lydia and 14-year-old Everly Livingston, known for their Instagram handle Ice Skating Sisters, along with their parents Donna and Peter. Our D.C. affiliate WJLA spoke with the sisters in 2022.
When you get older, what do you want to do with skating?
Go to Disney on Ice.
Ooh, how about you?
I want to be in the Olympics.
Also on board, ice skater Corey Hanos and his parents Stephanie and Roger. Their families saying Corey had his sights set on the Olympics. Just so many tragic stories, and investigators are hoping that they get closer to some answers because we do now have all of those black boxes. And again, the helicopter's black box was found intact. That is a very big deal because that's going to tell us what was happening inside the cockpit of that helicopter right before the crash. Those final conversations recorded. Were they confused at all? Did they see the correct plane? And so there are so many questions when you're talking about what was coming from air traffic control as they asked that helicopter, do you see that plane? And the helicopter pilot confirmed, yes, we do. But again, we just don't know if that was the correct plane. So many questions as this investigation rolls on, Morgan.
Gio Benitez from the scene there. Gio, thank you. And joining me now is aviation attorney and former Navy pilot Dan Rose. Dan, I want to thank you for your service. We're going to lean on your expertise here because you served in the Navy as a carrier-based attack pilot. Based on what we know so far, what Gio just laid out here, what could have led to this deadly collision?
Good to be with you, Morgan. Very, very sad for this tragedy. I think we're going to find out, hopefully in more detail when the black box is recovered, that there's a chain of events here that happened. One is, obviously we're working at night, makes things very challenging. 2, we have a routing of helicopters going right underneath an approach to a runway, which is with very limited separation, which is very dangerous. 3, we're going to have, I think, the pilots in the military helicopter, the Black Hawk, mistaking the traffic that they thought they had in sight and they were supposed to follow. And we're probably looking at a different aircraft. And we're going to also see that the air traffic controller was apparently, under non-normal circumstances, probably understaffed in the tower, was working very hard to manage all the traffic, and got behind and realized there was a problem developing after he had told the Black Hawk to follow the CRJ, and the flight paths continued to converge. At that point, the thing that should have been done was to make sure that the Black Hawk veered to a direction away from the CRJ, direct the aircraft further away, rather than rely on the fact that he hoped that the Black Hawk pilots had the correct aircraft in sight.
Well, Dan, I want to lean into that aspect a little bit more, because realistically, how much time does a helicopter have to change course here? I mean, how could the chopper maybe not have seen the regional jet in front of it? I mean, there's so many different factors here, but it seems like it happened so fast in a split second. Was there even time to negotiate a change of course?
Yeah, there was. I mean, helicopters are obviously very maneuverable. I mean, they can literally stop on a dime if need be, and can maneuver and pivot. But, this wasn't, sure, it seemed like the split second in the last portion of the flight. But remember, this was a chain of events and an accident developing over, probably minutes, including initially misidentifying the traffic that they were supposed to follow. So it started back at that point. Again, at night, it's challenging. You really have to pick out lights of an aircraft. You don't, a lot of these videos, I know people look at them and say, wow, how could you miss that? It's so obvious, but it's a very different perspective in the plane when you're trying to pick out lights, when there are other aircraft with lights on in the area. There was another aircraft going into runway 1 that very likely could have been misidentified as a traffic they were supposed to follow. There are lights all along the river. The river is dark. It is very potentially a confusing sight picture for the pilots. And that's the reason the route specifies below 200 feet, which it seems they weren't. I guess we'll find that out for sure with the black box as well. But even at 200 feet, to have a helicopter go underneath a landing aircraft at that runway, you have to expect that if everything is just perfect, you have maybe 200 feet of clearance between the aircraft and the helicopter. And that's just unacceptable that you cannot do that, because being off by 100 feet either way is not unusual at all. Here, it was tragic, but it's not unusual.
Absolutely tragic, and a lot of questions here. Dan Rose, we thank you for lending your expertise and, of course, speaking with us today.